Okay guys, so I'm not really sure how to start this video, so I'm just gonna jump right in. So today I'm going to talk to you about my journey being on hormonal birth control for about 13 years and my transition away from it. So when I was 13, I had really bad acne. Now I didn't have like nodular acne where it's like big and on your face, but I had like hundreds of tiny pimples across my forehead. So naturally, like any parent would do, my mom took me to the doctor to see what they had to say, if they could like give me a topical cream or whatever it was. So naturally, my doctor prescribed me with Diane 35, which isn't technically a birth control, but it does contain progesterone and estrogen. So it acts the same as a birth control, but it's never been like clinically tested as a birth control. So then it wasn't like he was prescribing me a birth control, but like really, he was prescribing me birth control at 13. Anyways, so I stayed on that for a number of years and I actually developed a bunch of like health problems. Like I started getting really bad IBS. I was lactose intolerant. I just became intolerant to like tons of food that like as a 13-year-old, you want to eat like pizza and fried chicken and like all this stuff, and I just couldn't. So I went probably a year through that until I had finally made the connection on my own, because I'd been back and forth to the doctor and the doctor kept telling me like, oh, you have the flu, oh, it's just IBS, all this stuff. And then I realized like, hey mom, I started having all these symptoms shortly after I started taking this pill, so like maybe I should stop taking it and I will, you know, feel better. So I took myself off it, and I don't remember at that time how long I was off it. But eventually the next time I saw my doctor, he was like freaking out like, oh my God, I can't believe you didn't tell me that you stopped taking this pill. So he prescribed me with, oh my God, it's been so long now, I don't even remember. It was like Yaz or one of those like ones that literally, I think it was called Aless. Is that a birth control? Yeah, Aless. Sorry. So I stayed on that, and then I became like sexually active a few years after that. So I just stayed on birth control from then on. When I was in university, a friend of mine recommended that I switch to the NuvaRing, which is a vaginal ring you put in, you keep it in for 21 days, and then you pull it out and you have your period for that week. And then once the week's up, you put a new ring in. So it stops you from having to take the pill every single day, because that was something that I was like totally horrible at doing. So anyway, I was on that again for another 3 or 4 years. At this point, I'm about 22 years old, and I was moving to Vietnam for a year. So I decided, you know what? My boyfriend and I had broken up right before I left for Vietnam. So I was like, I don't need to be on birth control. I'm just going to stop taking it. So that would have been August of 2013, I stopped taking the NuvaRing. And around October, November, I still hadn't gotten my menstrual cycle back. So I hadn't had a period by that point for what was 3 months. So again, I was living abroad at this time, but luckily there was a Canadian doctor facility there. So I went and visited that doctor. And of course, immediately his initial reaction was, well, if you're not getting your cycle, we'll just put you back on the NuvaRing, and that should fix everything. Because, you know, putting yourself on the pill to get your period back because your body doesn't know how to do it on its own. Great idea. Anyway, at the time, I didn't think it was weird. I was like, yeah, you know, doctors know what they're doing. I'll just go on birth control. Cool. Anyway, so I was on the NuvaRing then from 2013 right up until this year. So earlier this year, I had actually been contemplating switching off birth control just because I am getting to that age where I'm a little bit older. I'm in a serious relationship. Although my boyfriend and I don't want kids right now, it's definitely something that we're talking about doing in the future. So I'm thinking to myself, if my body has been on artificial hormones essentially for 13 plus years, it probably doesn't know how the hell to produce these hormones on its own. After traveling to Portugal in June to get my yoga teacher training and meeting tons of incredible women who taught me so much about like holistic living. For example, my roommate, her mom is a distributor for Young Living. And so when I told her I had been on birth control for that long, she was like freaking out, which was awesome because they were able to recommend me a couple of oils to buy, and that'll be in a couple clips. I'll put that in right now actually. Okay, so I bought this oil from Young Living, Clary Sage, and based on reading I've done online, it's supposed to help with balancing hormones. So we're going to be using this in the journey. Basically, I decided when I got home I took out the NuvaRing for the last time and I decided to just see what happened, use the oil and go from there. I took the NuvaRing out, waited 21 days. So normally if I had been on hormonal birth control, I would have gotten my period back like that Wednesday. And so what I did was I waited till that period of time where like I would have had it if I had pulled the ring out, but obviously I didn't have the ring. So, and then on that day, I started taking clary sage and lavender oil and rubbing it directly on my skin where my ovaries would be. Okay, so essentially I have been using these two oils every day since the first day I was supposed to get my period based on my previous cycle with the pill. So I use the clary sage because it's apparently really good for balancing hormones, and then I just use the lavender to cover up the smell of the clary sage because it's not great. So basically what I do is I dab a little bit on my fingers and then I rub it right where like my ovaries would be, and then with the lavender I just kind of like put it over top so that again I don't have to smell the clary sage. And within 5 days of that cycle, so my period would have been like 5 days late, I got my period back, no problem. Because I don't know how to YouTube, I literally only recorded one clip from the whole week. Okay, so I got my period back last night, so today is day 1 of like a full day on my period. Flow overnight was pretty heavy, but today it's been like surprisingly really light. No cramping. And the only like side effect that I really had was like I was very, very bloated when I woke up this morning. But honestly, like I feel super lean now, and it's really weird because normally even when I was on the pill, I always felt like bloated and disgusting during my period. So I'm interested to see over the next couple of days if that changes. But that's where I'm at today for day 1. So that was day 1. I failed to record anything else, but basically my period lasted for about 3 days, which is basically what it was like when I was on the pill. Now this could just be residual hormones still like trying to leave my body because my period seems like pretty normal, like not super heavy. I didn't have any issues with cramping. Again, I was rubbing that oil on my ovaries like every day. And yeah, it only lasted like a few days. So I'm interested to see in the coming weeks how my period progresses, if my next one comes with like any PMS symptoms or any severe cramping, mood swings, heavy bleeding. And if that's something of interest, I can post another video about that as I get into this more. But yeah, the first month I was actually like flabbergasted that I got my period within 5 days because like I said before, the last time I tried this, I went 3 months with nothing. And really the only change I made this time was that oil. So yeah, I'm feeling super good, super excited. And I am interested to see how this progresses and how transitioning off hormonal birth control plays out over the next friggin' 50 years of my life, I guess. I guess not 50 because you go through menopause, but you know what I mean. It's pretty exciting. And you know, there are so many alternatives to having to use hormonal birth control. I think it's actually really sad, in my opinion, that that's the default for so many issues. Like doctors are so quick to prescribe women birth control. It's for like so much shit that there's so many other options you could use to fix these problems. So if you're in my position and you are on hormonal birth control and you're looking to transition off, I'd be happy to answer any questions you have. You can leave them in the comments or message me directly, that's fine too. And stay tuned for the rest of this journey. Like I said, I'm very excited to see where it takes me. And I am super appreciative that you took your time to watch this video and learn from my experience. I will also link the oils that I used below if anyone's interested in finding a distributor to purchase those from. Okay, thank you so much for watching, and I'll talk to you soon.